having something that somebody the world gives me and have something that God gives me, I'll take what God gives me. When we look at Christ, as Christ gets ready to go to the cross, they take off his robe that they done beat him with and whipped him and blood all over it, and put this beautiful, prestigious robe on him to carry up Mount Calvary, trying to make a mockery of him, but yet still clothe him. And the Bible says that the clothing was so fine that they wouldn't even tear it apart. They wouldn't even share it. They just cast lots to see who kept it because of the simple fact it was there was no seams in it. So God dresses his son up on the cross in the very best, and individuals think that they're making fun of him when God is clothing him. So let's look at this Solomon. Solomon, one of the things that it talks about in here is that it's on page 15, it talks about the constantness of what we go through. And I love these examples that it uses in here. So a salesman clinches a deal, sells a car to you, and as soon as they sell the car, do they go, that's the end of it? They wait for the next appointment that somebody else is going to come in and buy for them. Then the fry cook can cook the most extravagant of meals, and after they cook it, do they get to go home? No, they got to wait for the next one. And they cook and cook and cook and cook just to go to home, take a bath, clean themselves up, to go to sleep, to wait to do it all over again starting the next day. Then the person who mows the yard only for the grass to grow back for them to mow it again. And then regardless of how good we clean the house, what's got baby on me about this one all the time. She said, I just cleaned the house up, and then you come in and you take your bag and just place it anywhere. And I just cleaned the house up. You come in and you take your shoes off and lay them anywhere, and I just cleaned the house up. So all of us, everything is just a constant routine that we do. But when you leave Christ out of it, that's all it becomes. It's a routine, something that you're doing. What did you say there? We're gonna be to the man in Genesis told Adam, "You'll toil by the sweat of your brow until you return to the dust." And all of us, one day or another, are gonna return to the dust. We're gonna close our eyes. As they say, stick our sword in the sand, study war no more, close our eyes, and wait for that day that the rapture happens. But until then, we're just going through the same routine. Work a job, retire, just to go work another job. My sister um, put her 30 years in by the time she was 42. She had put in 30 years on, no, let me take it back. Because she started when she was 17. So 47. Because she started working for the state when she was 17. Finished up at forced retirement, 47, when Donnie's retired, and was unable to collect retirement because she wasn't old enough. She has to wait to get. She has to wait to get retirement to the Social Security, but she also can't draw off of the retirement that she had because she was 47 and she was unable to. She's not old enough to draw. And so what does she do? She goes. She's gone back to work, but she's working for. She was doing the what's that? Where you call like Pizza Hut, Domino's, and all them, and she's one to call people that you get, and she gets sends it to the whatever store you call. And now her son has a food truck, so she works on the food truck with her. And she loves it. It's wonderful because she's helping her son, but at the same time, she has to wait before she can retire. And then they get us because when I did my CPA, they said, Mr. Blakely, you'll be able to retire. You can, if you want to, you can retire now. Now you ain't gonna get much. They said, but if you wait 5 more years, you can retire with all your benefits. And I'm like, wow. It's also, and now they're trying to hype up the retirement age because people are living longer. So it turns out to be, as Solomon said, vanity of vanity. That regardless of what you do, it's always something that's going to try to keep you on that wheel revolving around. And I think I told you before, when I had a $14 job, I was living a $16 life. Striving to get a better job. I got a better job at $16 and went up to $18 to make a better life. And it's always climbing up. Regardless of how I get there, I always try to go up to another level, and you end up outspending whatever it is that you make. So that's the vanity part of it that we're always chasing. But then eventually you get to that point to where Paul got, that whatsoever state I'm in, I've learned to be content. House paid off, car paid off. Long as those two right there are paid off, I'm good. Now I want this student loan to be paid off, but what you call it? But I'm willing to struggle with the student loan because I know eventually I'll deal with that one. I'll let the government house a little bit of what you call it. But as long as the house is paid off and the car is paid off, I'm good. But are you really? Because miss out on your property taxes for about 2 or 3 years and see if they don't try to come take your house. So I'm saying, okay, so I done spent all this time paying this house off, and now you telling me that they can come in on property taxes and take my house? But then it goes even deeper than that. I moved into a homeowners association area. Did not know this. That if I become so far behind on my dues, they can put a lien on my house. The homeowners association can literally put a lien on your house, and then if you don't pay it, they can literally force you to sell your house to pay them. So we're always chasing after. Pay our taxes, and they can come back 5 years later and tell you you didn't pay enough money and you got to pay us the penalty plus interest on your taxes. Experience our business came back all the way to 2021 on us. And good thing I got a partner that is real good as far as keeping the, because he matched them dollar for dollar. So they, okay, y'all don't owe us anything. 3 years later, 3 years later, show us the receipts for. And you know your receipts done faded, and yeah, if you got them. So that's the vanity of it. that regardless of what we do, we're always having to deal with issues. These old bodies begin to fall apart. Sister, what's called it, Sister McClendon, and I know she won't mind me telling the story. Where she had hip replacement when she was young. What's called, she was in an accident. They had to replace her hip. We go to her daughter's wedding, and of all the places, and I never knew this could happen, the hip popped out of place. So they had to get an ambulance, take her to the hospital. She had to wait over and wait overnight for an individual to come in. Other people could have did it, but their title didn't allow them to put it back in place. So she had to wait till the next day to an individual who came in with the title to put her hip back in place and ended up missing the wedding of her daughter. Vanity. Individuals standing around who want to do it because they know it's a wedding finna happen. They know your child's finna get, but because of their title, they can't do it. If they do it, they can lose their job and lose their license, even though they can do it. Vanity. And so that's what all those are examples of what Solomon is talking about. He's saying, man, what does it profit all of us? Gain the whole world. New Testament. Jesus turned. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose their soul? To go through everything that you're going through, and in the end, find out that you did not make it because you chose to start looking at material stuff instead of looking at spiritual things. So let's get into it. First, Ecclesiastes 1:1-7, if somebody will read that.
Ecclesiastes 1:1-7. The word teacher, son of David, absolute fertility, says the teacher. Absolute fertility. Everything is fertile.
Futile.
Futile. What does a person gain for all his efforts that he labors at under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun sets, painting it hurries back to the place where it rises. Gusting to the south, turning to the north, turning and turning goes the wind, and the wind returns in its cycles. All the streams flow in the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again.
So he said all this happened, and it uh kind of is futile. We know that the King James version says vanity of vanity. Um, who has the King James version of the Bible? Read verses 1-2. Yeah, Ecclesiastes 1, verses 1 and 2. You read that good? Let me grab it.
146. Oh, yes, it's what now?
Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 1 and 2. Okay. I got it. Y'all ready?
Ecclesiastes
Yeah.
1, 1 and 2.
Uh huh.
The word of the preachers, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanities and vanities, said the preacher. Vanities of vanities, all is vanity. What
Mm-hmm.
profits
Go ahead.
what profits had a man of all his labor which he had taken under the sun?
So what's going? So he turns here and he's first he classifies himself and he said the words of the teacher, others, the King James preacher. So what he's doing there is he's putting an authoritative title on it. It's not just that he identifies himself as the son of David, the king of Jerusalem, so that we'll have an indicator as to who the writer was, but he puts a title on it. He said, I'm not just somebody out here just throwing out some words." He said, "I have authority to what I'm about to say to y'all. I have a title that I can espouse to y'all. I have credentials. I have credibility." When you they had Margaret Taylor Greene on TV, and they had a big issue when Doctor Fauci, the guy who was over the COVID, Fauci, Doctor Fauci, and she refused to recognize him by his medical title, and they held that thing up until finally his title was recognized. Because without putting a title on there, it was saying he does not have authority. And he had all authority to speak on the subject matter that he was speaking on. He had all knowledge of it. But she did not want to recognize the authority and the knowledge that he had by trying to play it off, so she wasn't going to recognize the MD on this. And they said, no, he's a doctor. He has credentials. He had credibility in what he's about to say. When they talk about Jesus, they talk about Jesus Christ, the anointed one, to put credential and credibility on his name. He wasn't just some guy who came along. No, he was the anointed one sent by God that y'all were waiting on. And so all of that has meaning. When we were growing up, I don't care how bad somebody was, you still address them as yes sir, no sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. I don't care what they could be the crackiest crack person in the community, but you recognize them as yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. We grew up with that because regardless of an individual's identity, we were not allowed to disrespect them. We were not allowed to take for granted the title that was bestowed upon individuals. If you were a boy or a man, you were a Mister. If you were a lady or girl, you was either a Miss or Mrs. But you had those that identified you as far as your gender was concerned. They got rid of one teacher because he refused to say they. Identify his students as they and them. This boy wanted to be called by a pronoun. I want you to call me they. He said, "No, you're he." Well, now I want you to call me they. No, you're a he. And the school fired him because he would not identify the boy as a they. And he sued them, and they paid him a whole bunch of money. And he's back in there, and that boy's a he. Individual, they started allowing them to call them they. Man's riding with his friend. True. Man's riding with his friend. Police pulls him over. And he said, "Could I see your license?" The man said, "I don't have my license." He said, "Well, what is your name?" And the guy told him his name, and they gave him a piece of paper and said, "This is his identification." And he said the guy was identifying as a cat, and he identified as the owner. And they went back and forth in his office over it. And the officer ended up almost taking them down to arrest them before they backed off of it. Because he told him, he said, "I will arrest both of you and tow this car, and y'all can go fuss with a judge about if you're a cat and you own him." People, that's the people have become so complacent that they believe that anything should be able to come happen. But Solomon said, all that's vanity. That stuff ain't new. This stuff has been going on. It's just put in a different envelope. But there's nothing new up under the sun. How do you know? Because back in the Egyptian days, they used to wear the little cat heads and all of this. So all that is nothing new up under the sun. So he identified one of authority, and then he said, "I was the son of David, king in Jerusalem." So when you read that, you know exactly who wrote it. And then he talks about vanity of vanity, says the teacher. And the King James says, "Vanity of vanity," says the preacher. So he gives you the title, and then he gives you the comment. He said, "This right here is just all crazy." To those who are spiritual, it makes no sense. The Bible even talks about he'll make foolish the wise things of this world, and the wise things the foolish things of this world. How is it that y'all have never seen this individual, and yet and still y'all believe in him and believe that when you die, he's gonna take y'all to a place in heaven with him. And then those of us who have everything and don't believe in him are going to lose. I mean, we're going to this place that we're going to burn up. Yeah, it does not make sense to them. But to those who are in Christ, it makes sense. How is it y'all going to believe in and y'all can be healed and it's the doctors who are healing? It makes no sense to them, but those who are spiritual, it makes sense because there's the heart, and the individual who does not know him cannot feel the things of the heart. They can't see how you can go through what you're going through and have joy while they're depressed. They can't see why you go through what you go through and haven't lost your mind, and they done lost theirs. Because you have a joy that the world didn't give. And if the world didn't give it, come on now. And that's what they can't a certain jargon, there are certain phrases that only the Christian can understand. This joy I have, the world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. Greater is he that is in me than he that's in the world. There are spiritual phrases that they can't understand because you have to have a spiritual relationship and a spiritual mindedness to understand. On Christ, the solid rock I stand. All other ground is as sin. Be tossed to and fro. but yet and still I stand. When I've done all I can do, I still stand. They can't understand that. It makes no sense to them. But to those who are spiritual, it holds us together. That when everything else is falling apart, we know that he can make a way out of no way. And then just think how deep it gets. And even if he chooses not to, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, even if our Lord chooses not to, we'll still never bow down to you. And then the king gets to see the favor of God in their life. I thought it was three we threw in there bound, but there's four walking around. They get the favor of God on these individuals. That even an individual who is in Christ can walk a minute and still cover you. Our children walking around and can't understand how they're able to do things and not get in trouble, and their friends get in trouble, and it's because of the grace that you've shed over them. I was once young, but now I'm old, but I've never seen the righteous forsaken or their seed begging bread. You're speaking life over them, and they get into trouble with other individuals, and God's favor shows up not because of them, but because of the promise that he made to you. So Solomon is saying all of this. What does a person gain for all their effort that he labors under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. He said everything else can get tossed eternity outside, but the earth is still here. Everything else can go up disarray, but the way that God instructed order is still going to be here, regardless of how chaotic it may get. God's order is still going to be here. Have people falling apart over this political climate that we're in. But at the end of the day, God's order is still going to be here. You can get around the order of God. And what God allows to happen, God allows to happen. What the devil meant for my evil, God turns it for my good. God is going to make sure of all things and everything. And regardless of what we do, God allows. And if God allows it, he has purpose for it. I have individuals out there who you voting for? The person that I get in that booth and vote for. I don't have to explain to you who I'm voting for. Because in the end, I got a God that is going to watch over and make sure that he is still in control of all of it. God is the person that we put our faith and trust in. The book of Revelations, the Antichrist comes, and he is the man for 3.5 years. He brings peace for 3.5 years. Then all of a sudden, he brings chaos and starts to kill people. But those who are in Christ, we don't get to experience that because we've already been caught up. We don't have to go through the tribulation. And we trust and we believe in that. individual who has died, who had somebody around them, all tell the same story of when they heard that last breath and that slightly protruding opening of the mouth where the spirit left through. Every individual, believer or non-believer, have experienced that opening of the mouth and that last breath that goes back to God. But then there's a place where you're going to have count of where your soul goes. And it's going to go to one or two. And I'm so glad to know where my that I don't worry about the things of this world because of the simple fact God is where the ending result for us is going to be at. One of the great, well, I won't say the greatest, one of the great sayings is it don't matter how much money you have, everybody gets the same amount of dirt in the end. It don't matter how much money you have when they dig your grave, it's the same grave level as everyone else's. Only difference is where you spend the rest of your life at. All right. And this all the way to verse 7 is talking about the differences. So the wind blows in the north, south, east, the west, and then it returns in the same cycle. I thought one of the craziest things, and I never um, have been able to understand. And to this day, somebody will still have to explain, and maybe because I'm in that position. But a hurricane coming in blow my house down, and I build it again, and next year it comes and blows my house down again, and I build it again in the same spot, and it keeps blowing my house down, and I keep on building in the same spot. I don't understand that. I don't understand. I live in a place where my house gets washed away, I, knowing it's going to happen again, and it happens again, and then I build it back, only for it to happen again, and then get mad when the government says we're not going to give you any more money for that because we declared it a flood zone because it's done happened 3 or 4 different times, and we keep on giving you money to build instead of you going and buy somewhere else. You keep on building. I didn't blame the people from New Orleans. When I got here, you couldn't have sent me back until y'all do something about that mess. I'm saying right here. So what's and that's what Solomon's talking about when he's talking about vanity. He's saying, man, some stuff that just don't add up, make sense. It's gonna keep on happening. So why wrap yourself up in something that you know is gonna keep on happening in life? We say insanity is to keep on doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. But God is always in control. Because the water runs out of the sea and runs back into the sea, but it never fills up. And it doesn't matter how much water we drink, the sea still stays full. When I went to the Corpus, I got to see the Pacific Ocean because at Padre Island is the Pacific Ocean. But when I was in California, San Diego, they told me that was Pacific Ocean. So I'm saying, so I keep on seeing I'm in two different wide deals, but it's the same sea. And so much God, so it amazes me, and this regard, it don't matter how much water you drink. The creeks here, it don't rain, they'll dry up. You can. I'm watching the guys in the mud trucks, and they running over and the dry land, and watching, looking at trees and everything else, and then come back about a month later after it rains. You can't see the trees. Trees, you can't see. All you can see, water is over the bank. They was what you got. If y'all saw what they was talking about, there's going to be 33,000 people who are going to move into Denison. Yes, 33,000 people are going to move in years. And the main attraction is Lake Texoma. Yeah. Well, they say it's that right there, and this developer, I forgot how many thousands. It wasn't no two or three thousand, thousands of houses that they say a single developer is going to build out there. I know it was. I cannot remember how many. It was over 5,000. It's a large community. He already got it. He's going to build that, and Lake Texoma is going to be the draw. And they say it's going to be 33,000 people who are going to move in here. Isn't it amazing that this hasn't even happened, and they already know that it's going to happen? When I used to work for the city, they used to do 10-year planning out of what was going to happen. I remember Bricktown. I was with the NAACP. We fought Bricktown tooth and nail because from the east side, from they was going to take from 13th Street all the way down to 2nd Street, and that's where all the black people were living. And we fought them, and we told them that ain't just not going to happen. It's not going to come through. And now when I drive through there, I have to repent because it is one of the most beautiful uh, places. Now they are in contention for being able to get the Olympics or something down there because there's so much development going on there. They're talking about Denison. You're not going to be able to recognize Denison in some years because it's going to be so much development going on here because of Lake Texoma. And you have 33,000 more people going to come in, and that lake is still going to stay full. They're not going to have to ship water in. Water's going to always be in there because God's going to always make sure it's full. That's a vanity. Regardless of what we do, God is going to keep on being in control. Finally, on the way down 35, the Dollar General store down there on the other side, it was not the Dollar General, Dollar Tree had that big warehouse, and they're finally tearing it down because they're not gonna put it up again. Because so they say instead of being in the alley of where we know this possibly is going to happen again, we're just gonna go ahead and move it somewhere else. In Oklahoma City, they have Tornado Alley, where every year or two, tornado is guaranteed to come through there. And the same people, you'll see them on the news talk about, well, we'll rebuild, and yeah, we thank you. We've been through this before. We'll rebuild, but this time we're gonna put a storm shelter on our property in the garage, and then the tornado comes through and then tears down the house, and the house lays on the garage. So this time we're gonna build it outside, and it's outside now. They have to find you because they say you have to register where yours gonna be. So when it happens, they can come find you. Why would you? Why would you want to put yourself in a situation to where it's a possibility you're gonna be buried 4 or 5 days, waiting on somebody to dig you out of something, to come out and look at a news camera and say, "Well, we'll build again." The vanity he's talking about in us when it comes to material stuff. This has been our family's property all these years, and we're not gonna go. We're gonna keep on doing the same thing over and over again. Yeah, and that is God bless them. All right, then let's move on to 8 and 10. Well, a whole bunch of time I got into that one. I ain't been up for a minute. All right, 8 and 10 on page 18.
Exodus 1
1,
8
8,
to
and 10.
10.
Yes.
All things are worrisome, more than anyone can say. The eye is not satisfied by seeing, or the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. Can one say anything? Look, this new. It's already existed in the ages before us.
He says oxymoron. Whatever you say, there's something else that's fighting with tension with it. You say we put a pew there, but then next year somebody can pull the pew out. You can build a house over there, and next year somebody come through and tear the house down and put something else there. He says, so really, it's nothing really that we can count on as being permanent. You can dig an individual. You can build a cemetery, and somebody later on can come and say, you know what, we'll dig all of them up and place them somewhere else. Yes. You can have the Indians, the reservation. They keep, but yet and still, if the government wants to go in, they can take them to court and try to sue them and take their stuff again. There's nothing permanent that we can say is permanent except for Christ and the promises that he's made. And we see people going through stuff all the time that they were doing well, got out of church, and life just fell apart because they chose to get out of his will and do their own will, and then the mind begins to rationalize that it's not it, things just that's just bad luck. That's just and you put these labels on it, and the individual find themselves starting to stop using spiritual communication and just start using worldly phrases. Well, it was just by luck, by chance. No longer do they talk about faith. No longer do they talk about hope. Everything's about well, it was just luck. It was karma. There's no conviction or any that. It was just karma happened, and they began to change the terminology that they have. It's you are in the uh, presence of spiritual beings. They can't help but to talk in spiritual jargon after a while. Well, how you doing? I'm blessed. How things going? God is just good. Oh, how good. And they always use terminology that contribute. And even if they try to hide it, they cannot hide it because eventually it begins to come up in their conversations. I share it all the time. If you Christians and you can go an hour without having a no conversation about nothing dealing with Christ, it's something wrong because somebody's gonna eventually say something that's gonna start to relate to having a spiritual conversation because it's a part of who you are and a part of the character of who you are, and it becomes a part of the essence of who you are. And at times you can't understand it because of the simple fact that that's spiritual, and that carnal and spiritual are wrestling against one another, and that spiritual seeps out every now and then in your conversation because of the simple fact that's who you are. But can one say anything? Look, this is new. It has already existed in the ages before us. Whatever it is has already existed in one form or another. Before we had that wheel, they already had wheels. They wasn't inflated wheels, but they were wheels. When the Romans created the streets, the wheel became created to roll over, and they put the oxes and all that to it, and we see it. But the wheel out there was a wheel way back then. The pews, we see them all the time in all kind of little back before slavery movies. That pews in England, in the cathedrals, pews. There's nothing new up under the sun, and the Bible talks about that. Let's go to the last one, on 21:11 to 14. Now I read that. There's no remembrance of those who came before, and of those who will come after. There will always be no remembrance by those who follow them. I, the teacher, have been king over Israel in Jerusalem. I applied my mind to examining and exploring those wisdom of all that is done under heaven. God has given people this miserable task to keep them occupied. I've seen all the things that are done under the sun and have found everything to be futile, a pursuit of the wind. He's, he said, all this stuff that we do every day, without Christ, and that's what the ending is gonna be to it. Without Christ, it's just futile. I enjoy my job, and I get to go home and go to sleep, and just to wake up to start doing the same thing over and over again. And then the higher I get in my position, the more enemies start to try to come at me. And so eventually over time it begins to become mundane because it's just something I come to do. The individual who goes to work every day, there's a series that I'm watching about it's off it's on Facebook, and it's about these Nigerians who work for the customs department, and how over time their characters begin. There's one who calls herself Charity. Charity is this Christian woman, and now she has kind of turned uh, bitter to where either they approve it, either they deny it on your passport. Well, she told them she doesn't need an approval stamp. All she needs is a denial stamp. And they said, well, what happens when somebody comes and they do something? that can be approved. She said they'll never do anything that can be approved. Everything that they do needs to be denied because they'll never live right. And my name is Charity, and I know. And every individual who comes to her, she finds a reason to deny their visa. Then there's another man on there. He wants to be recognized as sir. So when you come to his window, he never allows you to think that you're better than him, even though he's in this position of servitude. So as he did on one episode, he told a lady, he said, "You think that you're something because you're a movie star, but you never called me sir when you came up here, and then you drank bottled water in my face." He said, "I had a movie star come in here one day, and I made her sit for 3 hours. So I tell you what, you go over there and sit until I decide that I'm ready to deal with you because you're so important and couldn't call me sir and drunk water in my face." And so he gets with individuals who are just trying to live life, but because of their status, he tries to make them feel that they're lower. And then there's a little one on there named Flora. Flora is one who just has issues. Hello, sir. It's outside,
At the
down in the
gym.
gym. Yes. All right. And so finally they showed it. Yeah, we got. Finally they showed an episode in which you saw how all of them over time had began to the thing that they hated, they began to become. And that's the vanity. Without Christ, individuals have the ability to become the very thing that they hate, the very thing that they loathe. They end up becoming because Satan turns them into the very thing that they hate because they have nobody guarding their heart, and that's how he operates. And so we're gonna leave it right there. That's the reason why you can have joy regardless of what you're going through. You may be tired, but you still have joy. That's why when individuals attack your character, you still character, and God holds you up to where other individuals eventually say, "Nah, that's not who. Nah, that ain't who that is. You can't tell me that that's who that person is or how that person is." And then God allows that person's character to truly be seen. And then even if He don't, you still have joy because you know whom you are and who you are. All right then. Yes. All right then. Nehemiah 8 and 10. The joy of the Lord is my strength. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, yeah. I had to hold on for about 3 years till when the enemy comes in like a flood. The spirit of the Lord. It don't say the Lord, it says the spirit of the Lord will raise up a standard against them. What God is just as um, Sister Minister Moore Leslie was talking about. It was wow. And I'll give this testimony and then we'll leave. Um, she gave that sermon. No weapon formed will be able to prosper against you. Gave a sermon, and she said it'll be formed. It just won't prosper. Oh, go ahead. Well, you should.
Amen. Sunday at Sunday school, we were talking about that right there,
Mm-hmm.
about uh, the weapon may form, but it won't prosper.
Yeah,
And what we go through, we going through it, but it still won't prosper.
that's
It
it.
will not get us because the Lord is in control of everything that we do
Yes,
if we are a believer
yes,
in Him.
and that Sunday she preached that.
Yes,
That Monday I got to work, and around two, it was like around 2:55. Email came across my computer, and it said proposal to terminate contract. They said we are about to close down every facility that you have, and we're going to take all of your licenses, and they had all the numbers on there, and they said because you are in non-compliance, and we're like, what is going on here? So we contacted the lawyer contacted them. They said that we hadn't paid some money that we owed them. Normally the state will do what they call a recoupment and take it, but this time they didn't do a recoupment. They said they thought we were going to send the money in, but we never got a message from them. And this was from 2 years. This happened in 2022. And so we said, okay, so we're trying to clear it up. And they told us we had 15 days to appeal it. And we got the lawyer. The lawyer sent the paperwork in. Then they sent me a letter the next day over the internet and said that by November the 8th, we're going to transfer all your clients out unless they choose to stay. And they sent it to the agency. So the agencies automatically told all our clients by November the 8th, all y'all have to transfer out of here. And so we're tripping, but the weapon was formed. 3 days later, they called my person in Longview and they asked her. They said, "Could you please call all of your clients?" They said because they got a protest going on in front of our building where they're tearing up all the papers of where they're supposed to transfer out. We had 119 clients, and none of them would transfer out. And that's when I went up. I drove up to Houston because they said, "Well, you can put it in the mail." Nope. I'm driving this up to Houston. They said, lawyer said, all you got to do is put it certified. Nope.